I seem to have a theme in my life, and these days that theme is gold, because of the Golden Grimoire, which is a lot of fun. And so I love designing all these beautiful gold backgrounds. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being with us this evening, and welcome to Practical Magic for Wealth and Abundance. And I'm going to hop right over here. And I've already had a fantastic introduction, so I probably don't need to introduce myself anymore, except to say that yes, I am a descendant of Italian American family that practiced a folk magical tradition. That was a combination of magic and folk Catholicism. But because of that, I was given my first tarot deck at the age of 11, which was my gateway drug to the magical world. So I've been a student of occult magical history since I was very, very small, because I was a geek and didn't have anything else to do with my life. But that's it opened up the whole world of esoteric practices to me. And so that's kind of how the very short version of how I got here today. The one thing that is important to know about Italian American folk magical practices is a very practical, very centered around the home, and very based in what we can do to make our home safer, more beautiful, more comfortable, and what we can do to sustain and maintain our family and make sure everyone's doing well. And as you can imagine, money and finance plays a big role in that. So when I started out my magical practice, and I went out into the world when I got older, when I was in my 20s, I hit the esoteric scene. And at the time when I did hit the esoteric scene in my small hometown, a lot of the people that I talked to outside of the home we're like, well, you can't do money magic. You can't do prosperity or wealth magic because that's far too base. That's far too material. That will bring only bad things and unfortunate things to your life. And I was like, are you crazy? My family's been doing this for years. And we do it, not for huge amounts of wealth necessarily. But we do it for situations like, oh my goodness, I need to make the rent, or the washer died, or the dryer died, or my car broke down, or really practical reasons, and money magic was used in order to kind of resolve those issues. So to me, coming from that very practical, very folk magic background, it sounded kind of really counterintuitive to go, well, no, 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 you cannot do financial magic. So that's why this is kind of the second book I wrote after Burn a Black Candle. Burn a Black Candle, I talked about a bunch of my familial practices, and now I wanted to write something that kind of really honed in on this one topic. Now, I know the attitude towards financial magic has changed a lot since the early 90s, back in the olden times when I first hit the esoteric scene. But I thought I would really like to write about something that I was just as passionate about as my family's folk practices. And that thing that I am just as passionate about is financial magic and what you can do in order to supplement your real physical mundane world efforts, how you can supplement them magically in order to make a more stable, more comfortable financial situation for yourself. So that's just a little bit of background of how I got here and why this was the second topic that I felt really impassioned to write about. So I'm going to pop over here to this slide, which is a question for you. And that question, and you can imagine it's a little bit of a trick question, and we'll go into why in a little bit. But my question to you is, when is the last time that you worked magic? Now, I think with this audience, I can probably assume that most of you folks are going, the other day, this morning, last night, last weekend, or I got together with a group of friends and we did something. But the reason why I ask everybody this question is because everyone has their own definition of what magic is. And for me, it's a very broad definition, and I would like to share that with you. So for me, a definition of magic is that it is a special kind of two-way conversation between your deepest self and the universe, where you're aligning your desires and your needs and your goals and with the universe and telling the universe what you want. And there are so many different ways throughout the world and from individual and individual that we have that conversation. Um, and funnily enough, I prepared a list of them here. A lot of times when I'm in the room with people, we kind of come up with these, as a group. But, everything from the basic, people joke around about the wish on the star or the wish on the birthday candles to prayers, positive thinking, doing ancestral work with folks that are in your past, meditation, visualizations, and then actual formal spells and rituals are all part of magic. We just call it different things. And some people call it manifestation, and some people call it magic, and some people call it by these individual terms. But really, all of it is that conversation with that deep part of yourself going out to the larger universe and saying, this is what I really want out of my life, and I would, you know, this is how what I need help receiving. And I think that it's really important to keep that definition of magic broad, even though I'm waving around a book that has the word grimoire on it, which is very specific to actual spells and specific rituals. But to tell people that, you know, the important thing is not the tool or technique that you use. The important thing is getting your needs and your desires communicated to the wider universe. And the only time that the tool is important is when it is obstructing or making that communication more difficult. When you have a conversation, you with another person, you want to be clear and you want your needs communicated as efficiently as possible sometimes. And if you're using tools that don't feel right to you, that only makes that conversation more difficult. So, for example, in the physical world, if you're not comfortable with texting, and you like to have your conversations, important conversations with people in person, then you go and you get some FaceTime with the person you have to have an important conversation with. Magic's the same way. If you want to have this larger conversation between your deep self and the universe, and you're not comfortable with ancestor work, that's a question I get a lot from people when I talk about ancestor work. They're like, well, what if I'm not comfortable with working with my ancestors? Well, then find a different tool that you're comfortable with because you don't want to build any obstacles between yourself and your needs and how you're going to communicate them to the universe. So that's just something that I love to talk about in the beginning because I like to make sure people have a really wide, broad idea of what magic is. It's much more than these different categories that I've put on the screen today, which is why I love brainstorming them with groups of people. Um, and I just want to make sure that while you think about the different concepts that go into financial and money magic, that you're considering all of these different topics and all of these different techniques that you can actually use to enact some of this magic. And so now that we've gotten that out of the way, I would like to get into revealing some money magic mysteries to you. And the reason why is that when I started to write this book and when I started to talk to my friends who practiced magic, I got a lot of different feedback. And a lot of the feedback that I got kind of stemmed back. It started me thinking about the times when I first started talking to people outside of my family about financial magic. And I got feedback from people like, oh my gosh, I could never do money magic for money because I'm afraid my uncle might die, and then I would inherit, and that's how I would get my money. And I would also get a lot of people who are thoughtful and kind of self-reflective and say, I have tried to do money magic before. It has not succeeded for me because I always end up thinking that my um, like I don't deserve it, or I start to question, do I really need this money? Do I really need this financial boost, etc. Um, so again, there's a lot, though financial magic is just magic. I think there's a lot of baggage around money in this modern world that we live in, and that starts to make financial magic a little bit trickier than some of the other types of magic that we like to work. And I've broken it down into that there's two types of issues that can cause difficulties when you're doing money magic. There's the technical and then there's the emotional spiritual issues. And I go into this quite a bit in the book, and I think it's some of the most valuable information that I can share when it comes to money and financial magic. So that's what we're going into next. So when we talk about the technical issues, the things that people seem to struggle with sometimes are the selection and wording of their goals, the selection of the type of magic that they're going to work, allowing the universe to work for them, and then doing the work. Now, that all may sound very vague, but we could kind of go into this and explore, you know, what these obstacles might be when you're sitting down to plan out doing some financial magic. First is the selection and wording of goals, and just a friendly reminder that when you're setting your magical intentions, to make sure that they are positive. And what I mean by that is don't do magic so you won't be broke. Do magic so that you have enough. Make sure that you word your goals and your intentions in a very positive way. And if you are one of those folks who tends to worry a little bit about, oh my gosh, what if I do money for financial security and I kill my aunt? Make sure that you throw into that wording something, an escape clause where you say something along the lines of, for my good and for the good of everyone around me, so that you start to build in the security that you're going to need in order to put your all into your actual magical work. I also like, when doing financial magic, to not just work it for myself, to work it for the people around me, my friends, my family, my neighborhood, my town, throw in, include concepts that are going to build wealth for everyone around you. So that's a part of some of the technical issues I see, is that, we if we approach our intention from a position of lack and focusing on what we don't have, then it's very, very hard to draw wealth and to manifest prosperity for ourselves. So to make sure that you always keep it on that positive track. And then the selection of the type of magic that you're going to work, and it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, of making sure that the magic that you do is something that you are comfortable with. The tools and techniques of magic are supposed to be supports for the magic that you're trying to accomplish, not something that you need to overcome. Now, it's always great to work with new techniques and to try things out, but when it comes to financial magic, select its type of magic that you are comfortable with and that you know that you can perform reliably, because again, you don't want to add any extra doubts or concerns or, oh my gosh, am I doing this right, to something that you might already have to be overcoming inertia with worries about, should I be doing this magic at all? Or, what if my great aunt dies? So you want to keep your selection of the type of magical work that you do, you want to keep it to something that um, you understand and that you're comfortable working with. And then we're going to talk about also different categories of financial magic in a little bit, and that there's wealth and prosperity and money magic. And each one of those varieties of magic are for different purposes and can help you accomplish different goals. And you must also keep that in mind when you're selecting the type of magic. Allowing the universe to do the work is very difficult because a lot of times when we are doing financial magic, feel as though we are in dire straits and we are under duress, and maybe we really need that money by the time rent is due. I know what that feels like. But also giving the universe space to manifest the prosperity and the wealth for you. So doing the work, doing the magical work, and then allowing the universe the room and the elbow room to provide you with what you need. It can also be a difficulty to overcome when performing financial magic. And finally, doing the work. And by that, I don't mean doing the magical work, but doing the real world work that the magical work is supposed to um, support. Doing that physical world you can touch work. So if you do money to help you get a new job, or if you do magic to help you get a new job because you need more money, you have to get out there and give the universe that opportunity to provide you with that new job. So that means networking, that means applying for jobs, that means letting people know that you're looking for jobs. And you know, the magic can probably eventually bring you the new job, even if you don't do that effort. However, it will go a lot faster if you go out into the material world and do work that aligns with the magical work that you're doing. And that goes with all types of financial magic, whether it's looking for a job, whether it's looking for a certain amount of money. You've got to involve yourself and interact with the physical world in order to make that opportunity available to yourself. So I mentioned the types of financial magic when I talked about selecting the type of magic to do, and not just selecting the right type of technique, but also selecting the type of magic. And so very quickly, I would like to tell you how I define money, prosperity, and wealth magic. Money magic is just targeted on getting a certain amount of money. So, for example, I always use this example, getting enough money to pay rent. And why do I use that example? Because I have used money spells before to do that multiple times in my past when I was in dire straits. So that is an example of money magic. Prosperity magic is focused on creating new opportunities for you. After you're already in a steady kind of situation, but you want to improve the situation that you are in. So if you are working, a spell to get a promotion or to get a better job that pays more, or if you have your own business, something to support your business and get more clients coming in the door, that would be a type of prosperity magic. And then finally, wealth magic is for expanding and building upon the wealth that you already have. So, something to bolster your investments, a spell to focus on gratitude and spreading wealth to other people so that that influence comes back to you. All of that is tied into wealth magic. And for me, these types of magic were a journey. I started with money magic because was in an unstable financial position. Once money magic helped me stabilize that, and I moved into my phase of prosperity, and then I did prosperity magic to improve my situation. And then once things really improved, I used wealth magic to help sustain and build and share that wealth with other people. Not everybody is going to travel that same path. And I, for example, have bounced back and forth because your situation changes over time. Sometimes you go through that progression and you're feeling very prosperous and very wealthy, and then something happens to change your situation, and suddenly you find yourself doing money magic again. Also, money magic is always good for helping out with getting that extra amount of cash just to accomplish a goal, like start a new business, or like go on that dream vacation, or help save money for your children to go off to college. So this isn't a cut and dried path that you take, but it's one that I tended to take when I started really focusing on financial magic, because I started out in a situation where I could not make my monthly bills. So I started with money magic to help me attain the money that I needed just to make ends meet. And then as my situation improved, thanks to that, I started working on different types of magic like prosperity and wealth magic. In my book, the spells and rituals are broken up into these categories. And the reason why I did is that I tend to make my money magic take less supplies and be less expensive to do with material objects. Because I'm figuring if you're doing money magic, you probably don't have a lot of cash to blow on specialized tools and specialized supplies. And then the as your financial situation grows through prosperity and into wealth, the supplies start to become more significant simply because um, at least in my experience, the more you put into something financially, that can be a type of energy that you can use in order to fuel your magical work. So if you're locating a specific tool to use, or if you go out and buy special candles to use, then that is all contributing to the effort and to the intent and the energy that you're putting into the spell. And so with wealth magic, it I tend to make my wealth magic require a little bit more so that you're fueling that magic with that additional effort. And I know we're keeping questions to the end. I usually ask for if people have questions throughout. And so it's really weird for me to be just charging on to the next topic, but I'm going to do that. And we're going to talk about spiritual issues. And this is another big focus of the Golden Grimoire. And I gave them the catchy name Wealth Wounds. Um, but these are the issues that come and that are obstacles. They're internal and they're stuff that we learn through experience, through what our society and our culture tells us, through what other people tell us, and what our experiences tell us. Um, and so these wealth wounds make it difficult sometimes for us to feel as though we deserve financial security, basically, which is sad to consider. But I think it is a major obstacle for when people are trying to do abundance and prosperity work and manifest prosperity in their lives. The first is the feeling of ambivalence that our modern culture has when it comes to wealth and money. We hear all kinds of things about how he who he who holds the strings calls the tune, who pays the piper calls the tune, and money makes the world go round. But we also hear that money is the root of all evil, and we hear that, that money causes corruption. And so, one of the things to do before you intensely work a lot of wealth magic is you have to decide for yourself um, what wealth is to you. Is it flashy cars and jet setting around the world, or is it having enough money to make ends meet and have the spare time to pursue the things that you love? Because that's a very wide range. And whatever definition you come up with is absolutely fine, as long as you are fine with it internally. If it makes you feel sneakily guilty to have those goals and define wealth in that way, you either have to A, redefine what you think wealth is, or you have to heal your wealth wounds so that you feel as though you are worthy of accepting that kind of wealth into your life. Because if you are working magic to obtain wealth and you're not comfortable with the type of wealth you're trying to obtain, there's a high chance of sabotaging yourself. Another issue that comes into it is fear. And I've mentioned it before, and it's used a lot of times as examples of working negative magic in a lot of classroom settings. Is that, you do money magic because you need money, and then your uncle dies, and you inherit a lot of money, and oh no. I think a lot of those stories are very illustrative of what we think about wealth in this world. One is they're focused on wealth only being a dollar amount. The other is that we're focused on wealth being an incredibly finite source. And what I like to counter that argument with is if you are doing a spell to become more enlightened, Do you ever worry that the individuals around you are going to become less enlightened because you had a successful spell that gave you more enlightenment? Probably not. I personally have never worried about that. So when you are thinking in terms of wealth, you really have to, again, think about wealth, what wealth means to you. And if you are concerned about injuring or harming those around you, you either have to work using meditation, visualization, journaling, or other tools to get over those worries, or you need to build that into your spell work and say, I'm going to work a money spell or a prosperity spell or a wealth spell in order to affect all the people around me so they all experience good in some way or another, and so that we all rise together. And then you're overcoming this idea of damaging those around you by working for financial security. And then there are the feelings of worth and feelings of lack that we all deal with. And that again comes from the messages that we receive from individuals um, that we encounter throughout our lives, our upbringing, our family, our friends, the communities around us. And the example that I use in the book is I had a very good friend of mine who had a very difficult relationship, and the very difficult relationship managed to teach him that he wasn't worth anything, that he needed to kind of give and give and give, but never receive back. And it was a really ugly situation for him. And when he left that relationship, those lessons stuck with him for a long time, and he struggled both emotionally in other relationships and relationships with his friends, but also financially because he really felt like he just didn't deserve the good stuff. And it was a deep struggle for him. And so these are the type of wounds that we can work on healing using things like meditation, other spell work for healing, energy work, yoga, journaling, visualization. So those feelings of how you value yourself, and if you feel like you're missing out on something. um, Another example I always use is my beloved mother, who I hope is not watching this and won't watch this, but she always, if she enters a contest and she loses the contest, at some point it is a guarantee that she will say, "Isn't that always the way? I never win anything." These repeated messages we tell ourselves about lack and if we are worth something or not add up and become part of that conversation that we are having with the larger universe. And so we must work to like, subvert them, to change them, to transmute them into positive messages. And that can be as simple as catching yourself in your daily conversation and going, you know what? No, I am worth it and I will win things. I always win things. Even if it sounds insane to you because you just lost something, you turn it around and you deliver yourself a new message, one that's going to support your efforts and your financial goals and your security. So I was rambling about wealth wounds a whole lot on that last slide. Here is a definition from the book on this slide. Um, these wealth wounds are internalized beliefs about prosperity or wealth that are limiting or negative and that can obstruct your financial success and the performance of your financial magic. Um, it can originate from your internal beliefs or from what people have told you. And the thing about these wounds is that, my book talks about how to identify them and how to eliminate them or reduce them. But you're going to keep receiving these wounds because it's just normal part of our experience in life. So these new wounds can arise at any point in your life. Um, but the thing is that you can continue to be aware of them, identify them, and heal them, just like you would take care of your health in other ways. And this will help you to continue to maintain a healthy relationship with the ideas of prosperity and abundance. So to help identify wealth wounds, one big thing is only you can identify them. You can talk to lots of people, you can go to therapy, you can go to a trusted friend, you can talk to a spiritual advisor, but only you will really know which ones are apply to you and what what's an actual wealth wound. They can be very difficult to face, and they may not stem directly from money. But again, there's many techniques you can use to ameliorate and to mitigate these wounds by journaling, talking about it, exploring things, doing shadow work, doing energy and body work, and doing meditation and visualization. And my book goes into more detail about how you can use those techniques to identify those wounds. And you can use those same techniques to heal wealth wounds. And it's not a one and done in a lot of cases. If you have a very deeply seated belief that is obstructing your feelings of worth and prosperity, it's going to take repetition, and you may have multiple issues, and you may have to prioritize what's the most significant one for you. That you can use cleansing baths and again meditation and visualization and different therapeutic modalities to heal these wounds, but it is something that is going to take time. Now, the good news is what people ask me next is, well, does that mean I can't do financial magic? I can't do money magic until all my wealth wounds are healed? The good news is no, that is not the case. And the honest news is that if we had to wait till all of our wealth wounds were healed 100% forever, we wouldn't be doing any financial magic. Because, like I said, this is an ongoing thing, but it is something that you can control with awareness about your self limiting beliefs, but also the messages that you receive from other people and how you handle those messages. If you're around someone that tells you all the time, you're not worth it, or you always have bad luck, or that's just the way things are and you can't improve them, you have to do things to shield yourself from those concepts so that you do not internalize them, and so that it does not become what I call a wealth wound, which I understand is a very dramatic term because these aren't, you know, horrific injuries that we're experiencing spiritually, but they are things that build up over time and that can cause issues when we do financial magic. Very quickly, I wanted to go into some magical techniques that you can do today because they don't require a lot of tools. That you could go home. Well, you might already be home because you're watching this on video or on the internet. But you can turn around and you can go into your house and you can do these magical techniques. And one of my all-time favorites is turning your luck. All this requires is a large tray or container, your wallet, some salt, and if you want to get super fancy, some bright, really cleansing, astringent smelling incense of your choice. Now, my grandmother, she burned sandalwood for everything, so if you also have a favorite incense, that works too. So, to turn your luck, this is a situation, you do this when you feel as though sometimes you just have a series of unfortunate events when it comes to your finances. Um, maybe you lose some money while you're out, or maybe you end up with an unexpected bill, and then maybe you get a minor appliance breaks at home, and it just seems like one thing after another is happening and it's causing you issues with your finances. What do you do? Well, you turn your luck around. And how you do that is you open up your wallet and you take everything out of your wallet. And the very first thing that you do is you throw away unnecessary items because our wallets tend to collect clutter. And just like our living spaces, we don't want our wallets cluttered up with stuff that's unnecessary or that makes us feel bad or makes us feel crowded or makes us feel, you know, unwell, like just uncomfortable. So you want to get rid of those unnecessary items. And then you sprinkle tray into the salt so that you cover the bottom of the tray or container, and you put your wallet and your contents in the tray. You light the incense, and you can circle the tray 3 times counterclockwise and say something like, turn my luck and take it back, get me on the right track. Now, if you don't like rhymes, you can say your intent, you could state your intent in a different way. But you're going to leave your wallet and its contents in the tray for at least a couple hours so that the salt has the chance to absorb any of the negative influences that have built up around your finances. You can even, if you're feeling brave and you don't think it's going to mess up the inside of your wallet, when you're putting it in the tray, you can sprinkle salt inside your wallet. And then when you are finished with letting it sit in the tray, letting the salt absorb that negativity, you take your wallet out and then you carefully dust off all the salt and empty it out of your wallet if necessary. But then when you replace things back into your wallet, do it very consciously and keep in mind this idea that now your luck has turned. Now things are going to be different. Now things aren't going to, now things are going to keep working the way they're supposed to work. And you're going to have plenty of extra cash. And you keep repeating these positive messages to yourself as you put your credit cards and you put your driver's license and you put the paper money back in. And basically what you've done is you have used your wallet as a magical tool in order to turn your luck around. And this is something that's so simple and so easy to do. You can that salt that has absorbed that negativity, you need to get rid of it. You can either wash it down the drain or you can take it to your outside trash and dump it in the trash and know that it is gone forever and it's taking those negative influences away, those disruptive influences, and you have turned your luck. Another thing that I like to do, and when I was talking about doing things that support you financially, but also doing things that support the people around you financially, is blessing your money. So this can be a little bit weird these days because a lot of times I don't have a lot of paper money or even coins on me. I just have my credit cards and my debit cards, and I do everything with plastic. So you can do this with your money or a representation of it, a green or yellow candle and a candle holder, a bowl, some salt, some water, and a little bit of basil. And again, I'm trying to keep these things you can turn around and do today. But what you do is you put the bowl in the center of your workspace and you light your green or gold candle or yellow candle and you state your intention. And this can be something very simple like, I want to bless my money so that it comes back to me, but I also want to bless it so that it blesses everyone it touches. So all the people that interact with your money, whether it's a cashier, whether it's the teller at the bank, whether it's someone balancing some account somewhere, this intention is not just to bless you, but is to bless all the people that come into contact with your money. Put a pinch of salt in the bowl, put in a little bit of your money, and then you repeat. And so you're layering money and salt. Now, this layering process, if you don't have cash on you, if you don't have physical dollars and cents, that's fine. You can use a representation. You can use your bank statement. You can use play money. You can use you handwritten note representing what your money is. But basically, you layer it if you need to layer, and then at the very end, you sprinkle basil on top. And you picture your money carrying blessings to all who come into contact with it and coming back to you and bringing and amplifying those blessings back to you. And you sit and you visualize that with the candle and the bowl of your money representation that you're working with. Um, and then, if you can, leave it for a few hours. I like to let it burn until I go to bed, and that might be something that's convenient to you or not. Never leave a candle unattended. But if you can let the candle burn for a while and send that energy out into the world, and then you have your blessed money that you can take out of the bowl later on, and you can then, as you spend it, know that it not only is it going to come back to you, but it is going to bless the people that come into contact with it as well. The salt and the basil that you use to bless the money, unlike the salt that was used to cleanse your wallet, this is charged up with good vibes and good financial energy so that you can sprinkle it around your house or at your doorstep in order to draw prosperity to you also. You can do the same with blessing your business card to attract wealth. and I'm trying to be mindful of my time because I think I'm coming up to the end of my presentation time. But you can use, if you have a small business or side hustle, business cards or advertising materials. You can use an oil that aligns with your intent, or even a colored marker that aligns with your intent. You pick it out, like maybe you want your advertising materials or your business cards to draw clients, and then you select your supplies in accordance with your intent, and then you bless your cards. And so, for example, my business cards, which I don't seem to have any around right now, but I want to draw people to my book. To me, my book is represented by the color gold. Imagine that, because it's called the Golden Grimoire. So can take a gold marker and focus on, I want this business card to draw attention and interest in my book. And then what I'm going to do is color the edges of the card with that gold marker. If you don't want it to show up, for example, like bright gold edges on your business card, then you can use an oil that aligns with your intent, that represents prosperity or drawing to you, and you can rub that on the edges of your card and let them dry, and then say a statement over the card like, this card will bring new clients into my door, or this card will bring attention to my latest artistic project. And you can spend some time working with your business cards. And a lot of times when I'm doing something repetitive like this and I'm working over and over on blessing, I know, small groups of cards. I don't do individually each card, but like groups of 5 or 10. You get some interesting insights into your business while you're doing that. Sometimes you get some really cool inspirations because that blessing already starts to work as you're doing the work, and you can suddenly go, oh, you know what? Here's a new um, place where maybe I should put my advertisements, or here's a new networking opportunity that I probably haven't taken advantage of yet. So you start to, at least I do, get insights while you're doing the blessing of your business cards. And I'm finished. And thank you for listening. And I know I sped through it, but I always like to cram in as much information as possible. That little QR code takes you to my link tree, which takes you to stuff like my newsletter that I put out and stuff like that. But for all intents and purposes, the formal presentation is complete. So thanks for your patience. So there's a couple different ways for the universe to respond.
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but I have worked magic in the before that has not worked. I don't get the results that I wanted. It doesn't come. Why didn't it come? Was it a technical issue on my part? Was it an execution issue on my part? Or did I not do the real world work that allowed the universe the space and the opportunity to provide me with what I was looking for, what I was hoping to attain? So it's not 100% certainty that every time you work magic that you're going to accomplish it every single time. So that's one thing to look at. And the other thing is, sometimes magic is working and it's just working incredibly slowly. And the reason why it's working incredibly slowly is because you're not doing that real world work again. And so in that case, I would say it's not necessarily that great Aunt Mary's going to kick off and die and leave you money. It may just be that 20 years from now, you finally find a way to financial security. It
Right.
might take a really long time. I tell my beloved daughter, she's 14, and she's kind of like, "Ooh, mom, magic," and I'm like, "Yes, child, rock and roll, magic." However, like you have to understand that a lot of times it takes more effort to attain something with magic than it does to just do it for yourself. So, and the example I use is opening a door. It's like I could sit here and meditate for 3 weeks to open my office door, and have my just magic by magic have my door open. Now, if I'm living in the house by myself, it may take, or if my partner's away on a trip, the door may eventually get opened because he decides that, he's going to come in my office and find out why I haven't left it in 3 weeks. Or I could get up and open the door myself. Both are going to get me the same result, but one takes a lot of spiritual energy and a lot of time to accomplish the same thing. And so I mean, I question our view of the universe when we say that it takes the path of least resistance and we always assume that it's going to be this negative thing. Now, I may be Pollyanna. People may think I'm a little too blasé, but I've done a lot of magic and I've made a lot of weird magical mistakes in my life. And they have impacted me negatively, but they've always impacted me negatively. They've never really blown back on the poor souls that surrounded me that were not aware of what the lunatic relative or friend was doing. So I have a real doubt that um, doing magic for wealth is going to endanger the lives of friends and family members. I don't. Although I want to take a screen capture of that and show it to my partner, but he may die laughing. Um, I struggle with negativity all the time. And of course, when you're doing like something like this and you're presenting to a group of people, and when it's the store of your dreams, which I was talking about earlier, I have a walk-ins. I've always wanted to be at that store. Um, it's real easy to be bright and bubbly. And when I'm talking about my favorite topic, it's super easy to be bright and bubbly because magic is my favorite topic. Um, but just like everybody, I really struggle with negative messaging. I make fun of my mom for it, but I do it too. And one thing that I do is I try to turn those negative thoughts around and catch them and go, you know what? No, I'm not bad at this. I'm learning or I'm getting better at this. And you start to turn those negative ideas around. And the other thing is if at all possible, surround you with people who support and love you and see the very best in you. And that can be a struggle sometimes because I have also gone through periods of my life where the people around me weren't super supportive and were, in fact, a little bit abusive. And it's the the people you see yourself a lot through other people and you want to build a community of people around you who see you in the best possible way and that can show you the best parts of yourself. And if you don't currently have that in your life, that is a powerful magical act is finding even just one person, even someone that you just know online that's an online friend, but someone who will be your cheering section. And I'm going to start crying if I keep talking about this anymore because about 15 years ago, because I'm old, I thought I was a magical failure. I thought that I wasn't a serious magician. I thought that ceremonial magic was not for me because I just couldn't do it. And my current partner came into my life and he kind of shook me by the shoulders and he is like, "What in the hell is wrong with you?" And kind of gave me this talking to. And he was like, "You can do all of these things. You can work this style of magic if that is what you truly love and if that's what you've pursued your entire life." And it's been it's been 10 years now. And my second book's out and I'm writing about the stuff that I love. And I'm writing more books about the stuff that I love. And I'm getting to talk to people like you all about the stuff that I love. And part of the reason, the direct cause is that I had somebody stop me and be my cheering section. So get yourself a cheering section even if you have to be your own cheering section for a while. But know that whatever you really want to do in life, you can certainly accomplish. Okay, I think I'm done. Ooh, I don't have one prepared, but now I want to build one. Thank you very much. And and that self-love, building that self-love and treating yourself as gently as you would treat a good friend. Oh my gosh. Um, all are key components, and it's stuff that you have to teach yourself how to do because our world doesn't teach us how to do that all the time. Potentially, yes. I was super young when that. I was like 8, 9 years old, and it was the height of video game arcades. And my dad was an amazing person. Like I said, my mom and dad struggled with money all my youth. And at that time, my father was working 3 jobs, and my mom was working a job to keep us all afloat. And yeah, that was a huge bounty and abundance because unlike it felt like I couldn't have the toys that I wanted sometimes. I couldn't have the experiences that I wanted, but I could go into this phantasmagoria of a place and have as many plays on those arcade machines as I possibly wanted. And my father was, we're talking, my mom's working and I'm 8, and so my dad's taking me to his job with him because they can't afford anybody to watch me. But I'm getting this amazing experience of playing these games. And I think the thing is depending on your perspective, a lot of times you can shift your perspective. And what could have been this burden for my father and my mother, and that he had to take me to work and, drag this little kid around with him. And he turned everything into this amazing game and this great experience. I got super good at mini golf also. So no one ever challenged me to mini golf. But it is that shift in my father decided to view it as he got time to spend with his daughter. And he turned it into a good thing for me and him both by doing that. And so a lot of time it just takes that fraction of a shift. We're from changing it from something from I don't have to do something, but I get to do something. And you can, you know, start to tap into that really fundamental idea of prosperity and abundance, um, that I think the Ace of Coins represents so well. So here I brought it back to the Ace of Coins and the tokens in the arcade. So yeah, I think that my folks' efforts to make do and to make the best of things a lot is kind of what helped set me up for, finding the best in things, even when things are really difficult. I think that the remedy for that solution comes from building real healthy relationships with those entities, because I think if you build a healthy, strong, honest relationship with those entities, that your individual behavior starts to change. And that as your individual behavior starts to change, it starts affecting the choices that you make, and what you do, not only in with your abundance and the wealth that you do have, and the choices that you make, and how you vote with your wallet, for example, and also your daily choices to minimize, streamline, reduce waste, make more sustainable choices, and that if you are connected and you are interacting with these entities, that you do not remain unchanged. That's kind of the beauty and the point of building those connections. And I strongly believe that, a lot of the wealth entities that are out there started out as grain and rice gods and goddesses, and that when you connect with an entity like that, that your perception of not only what wealth is, but how we build a sustainable world that supports everyone in it starts to change, and it becomes your. I really don't think that pursuit of abundance and your spirituality are separate things. And I think that as you grow spiritually, you start making the kind of choices that build a sustainable world. Talk about a favorite topic. So uh, I absolutely love, and I will say, my partner is he studies languages and he studies Latin, and he has drilled it into me that there's no soft G in Latin, and so I say sigil in this household so I don't get lectured. And people will ask me when I talk about sigils, they're like, "I say sigil, is that okay?" I'm like, "Yes, that is perfectly okay." So please don't think I'm crazy, but also please don't think anybody's mispronouncing it. You can pronounce the word however the heck you like, but I can't say sigil unless I force myself to. Anyway, I love them because they are so visceral yet simple, and you don't need a lot of stuff to make a sigil. And I point out in the book that particularly with this planetary method, where it's like a multi-day method, that a lot of times when we are trying to start building our financial situation, we got plenty of time, but we don't have a lot of physical stuff. So what do you do with your time? Well, you spend it making a planetary sigil that's going to help you rebuild your finances. Um, and in a lot of the instruction that I see out there, there is you get the basic idea of how to make sigils, and then you get this vague thing at the end that's like, and there's so many things you can do with sigils, and you can use multiple sigils, and you can combine sigils, and you can do pooling where you create lots. And anyway, good luck. And I thought, even though this book is not about sigils, I would love to go into one of the more complex approaches to making sigils and share with people what it really means to dedicate yourself to a magical task over a number of days and use sigils to focus all of your realizations and energy and intent into one thing. And once you do, how do you do that? How do you activate it? And how do you use it in your other spell work? And honest to goodness, when I first proposed the book to Watkins, that was the first chapter I wrote, because I was on fire about it at the time, and I was like, I want to share this with everybody. And then I thought to myself, my God, what did I do? People are going to think I'm crazy when I tell them to spend more than a week creating a sigil. And the first week that the book came out, I had someone reach out to me and ask me a question for clarification because they were already in the process of creating their planetary sigil based on the book. And I was like, yes, so excited because it's sigil magic is so powerful yet so simple. And some of these more complex techniques, they're not really complex, they just take more time. And I wanted to kind of, all of my writing, I want to open the door to people to styles of magic that they may not consider, or they may think, well, that's beyond me. Nothing is beyond you magically. And so here is an advanced sigil technique that I just kind of sneak into the book because anyone can do it. Ooh, that's a good one. So, um, there's a big, long, crazy spell at the end of the wealth section, and it's about a wealth bowl. And it's not the first spell that comes to mind. The very first spell that comes to mind is a very simple one, where you call to the four directions. We used to activate your spiritual network when you're looking for a new job. I have used that I don't know how many times to draw the right job opportunities for me when I was job hunting. And so that is a very simple and but this wealth bowl, where you're adding money and you're lighting candles every day and you are focusing on gratitude for what you have. And it's ridiculous. And I know it's ridiculous because it requires 30 candles or 31 candles because you're doing it every day for a month and you're using a new little candle every single day. And to me, it was both a sacrifice of time and effort, but also a concrete way to force myself to focus on gratitude for what I had, and then acknowledge that I can use what I have to make something new or to make the next step financially. And that spell I debated about putting in the book, 'cause I'm like, again, I'm like, this is crazy times. I'm telling people to spend, in the world where, all the hashtags on social media are simple spells and easy spells and short spells, and here, just wave this, light this, sprinkle this herb and you're done. I'm telling people to spend an entire month focusing on gratitude and what their abundance is already doing for them and then what it can do next. And I thought long and hard about it, and I was like, I got to put it in there because it has had a major impact on how I view prosperity, how I view wealth, and some of those things. It goes back to the question you asked about the different entities and connecting with those different entities and how they change your perception. I was working with a specific entity, and it changed my perception of what I can do with my wealth that's more positive, more supportive to other people, and more sustainable. So, that the big spell at the end, if you can swing it, the big spell at the end of the wealth bowl to remind yourself of your wealth and what you already have is is the one that I think changed me the most. Um, I worked with, can you see my amazing picture of her? Back here, Fortuna. And
Yes.
I absolutely love that drawing of her because she's pouring out the cornucopia.
Yeah.
And she has taught me a lot about trust and trusting in the future, which I'm a pessimist, like I said. Trust in the future isn't a big deal for the big thing for me, but she has taught me a lot about trust in the future. So, yes. So my story about the McDonald's and the $2 bill, this was absolutely wild for me. I was standing in line, and they had two lines going to the McDonald's counter, and there was a person ahead of me, and they paid for their money, and the cashier went, "Whoa," and dropped the money on the counter and would not touch it. And I'm all like, what weirdness is this? Of course I'm interested in this. What's going on over there? And what it turned out that the person had paid part of their food with a $2 bill, and the cashier refused to touch the $2 bill. So I'm spying at this point because I'm like, why is that person not willing to touch a $2 bill? This has to be something weird and interesting. And my father helped me fill in the gaps, but I watched the person's manager come over and look at the $2 bill, and they do something with the $2 bill, and then lean over and whisper to the cashier, and then the cashier kind of grumpily does something with the $2 bill, and they take the money and they put the $2 bill under the till, like, and lift up the tray. And what it turned out is that they tore little tiny corners off the $2 bill. And I was just like, the heck? And so I talked to my father, who collected money. He collected coins and he collected dollar paper money a little bit, mostly coins. And he filled me in on this history of the $2 bill, that it had a very bad rap in the southeastern United States because it was associated with prostitution, vote buying, and gambling. And so it had this crazy history of being involved in a lot of shady things, and then also finding out later on in life that $2 bills were used a lot in magical workings for various reasons, particularly with African American practitioners using $2 bills in certain, especially gambling spells and stuff like that. That $2 bills had this reputation where it's literally, you don't know where that's been. You don't know where that beautiful $2 bill's been. And $2 bills are very rare, and so they stand out already. And so this idea is that if you get a $2 bill, if you're forced to touch it, you tear off a little corner of it to kind of negate anything that may have transferred to you from the $2 bill. And so in the book, I talk about, instead of tearing the corner off of it, cleanse it magically and then use it for your own purposes, because why not? So you can create it for a, bless it for a talisman, like cleanse it, bless it, make it a talisman that you carry in your wallet with you at all times to help draw prosperity and wealth to you. So, that is the story of the $2 bill. Um, in a nutshell, and it was just this, I love seeing things like that play out in regular life. Like no one's teaching you about it, no one's telling you about it. It is this amazing point of folk belief and folk religion and spirituality that suddenly blossoms in front of you, and you get to observe people interacting and dealing with the situation. Um, and you're left usually with a lot of questions, and then you have to go and do more research to find out what the heck you just saw. But when you get to experience something like that, that is an abundance and a blessing to me because, like, you just don't get that every day. But the lovely lady at the flea market, who taught me about the sevens, man, she blew me out of the water because I had never heard of that before. And that is that there is a number on US $1 bills, and if it's a seven, you keep it, you save it, and then you turn around and spend it to basically put prosperity and blessing back out into the community. And so she made sure when I bought, and I was buying magical supplies from her, and she made sure when she gave me change that she gave me a lucky seven in change. She had them folded up and kept underneath her stack of $1 bills so she could distribute them equally to people as they came to shop at her stall. That's some wild stuff. Thank you both for having me, and thank you for your amazing questions. It's always a pleasure to talk to folks who are just as enthusiastic about magic as I am.